I know your plans don't include me. Here we are, both of us lonely, longing for shelter from all that we see. Why should we worry? No one will care, girl. That's a little Kenny Rogers. What's going on? People on the third degree, look at the stars. So far away, we got tonight. Who needs tomorrow? We got tonight, people. Welcome to the Third Degree Show. What's happening, everybody? I'm by myself. I decided, just me. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Instagram Live, Facebook Live, peoples in the world. People in the world today. What's going on? I'm here. I'm by myself. I'm excited. Listen, about to jump right in.
All right, so first things first.
I'm all by myself. I don't have anybody to disagree with me today, so it's going to be good.
This has been all over social media.
Okay.
O.J. Simpson creates a Twitter account.
Okay.
So, and on his Twitter account, people are feeling like he's created this account to get even with people.
Okay.
Because in one of the videos, he says, I have a little getting even to do.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
I saw that.
In one of his tweets, videos he did, he addressed the rumors with about Kris Jenner and him possibly being the father of Khloe Kardashian. So what do you think about him getting even with everyone? And do you have your opinions on who you think he might try to get even with?
No, I mean, listen, first of all, I don't, hey, OJ, if you see this, and it's pretty presumptuous and pretty insane and braggadocious for me to think that O.J. Simpson's going to watch my little Third Degree show, but hey, OJ, hey man, I hope you do watch the show. I'm not necessarily a fan. I mean, I guess I'm an OJ fan. I was a fan of the football, and certainly a fan of the transition into movies and television. I was a fan of that. Not so much a fan of the killing and et cetera, if you did it. But hey, you know, listen, I honestly feel like OJ should get even. I feel like OJ should have a Twitter account just like anybody else. I think OJ should speak his truth. I think that the world is interested in everybody's truth. And I feel like if OJ feels like he has something to say and he's got some stuff to put out there, I mean, how low can you go? How low can you go? I mean, there isn't any lower that he could go, all right? The man's just getting out of prison. He went to prison not for what he should have went to prison for, but he went to prison because basically, if you read the real situation with him going to prison, he robbed people to get stuff back that's his, really. So, I mean, yeah, he brought a gun there and he threatened them and it was kidnapping and he wasn't quite thinking. OJ, you weren't quite thinking totally properly, but I understand, hey, it's mine. What if you found out there was something of yours that was missing? What if you got a ring for being, what if you got a ring for being best young black dude video guy, and then somebody took your trophy and stole it from you and is trying to sell it to people. You want to get that thing back. So, but that's what he went to jail for. But I mean, murder, okay, we don't know. Jail, he's not the most brightest guy in the world. And so now here we are in this situation, and he wants to get on this account and wants to speak his truth. I just don't think he can go any lower. I think that this is going to be good. It's certainly going to be good for someone like me that has a talk show like this forum where I'm now talking. There was a time when we were answering questions, and we still can answer some questions, but now we've just decided, hey, we're gonna talk about stuff that's going on in the world around us today. And hey, OJ, if you got something to say, speak your truth, man. Go ahead. I'd love to hear. I'm glad he's free, and so, hey, I think if OJ has a right to say something just like anybody else, and whether or not it's true or not, Hey, if the president of the United States can tweet, and then why can't OJ? If the president can do it, then why can't OJ? I say, hey OJ, go ahead, Mr. Juice. Speak your truth.
All right. So here in North Carolina, I want to say is Wendell, North Carolina, a pool owner.
Wendell. Or Wendell.
Okay. I'm not sure. And so the pool owner basically has rules. And the rules are no baggy pants or dreadlocks, no weaves. It's like a long list of things that you would normally see people of color have. So he is banning them from the pool. What do you think about that? Because he feels that his rules aren't racist, that they're just rules.
Okay, well, first of all, I think the ban against weaves is very different than the ban against dreadlocks because, come on, ain't nobody with a weave getting in the water anyway, so they could have just took that out. Nobody with a weave is getting in the water. Nobody with a lace front is going to be getting in the water with the lace front. And nobody who spent a whole lot of money getting that weave sewed, and that thing is not cheap. And nobody who spent all that money getting that weave sewed is going to now go diving in no chlorine. We all know who gets weaves. It's black women, and black women don't even barely like to get their face wet, okay? I mean, y'all don't even put your face under the water, okay? No water ever hits the top of your head. It just runs down into your face. That almost never happens. You guys normally have showers. I live with a black woman who her shower hits her right in her chest, okay? She washes her face with her hands. I can't even get in the shower without just sticking my head under there and just letting her on there. But, and let's be honest, okay? The women with the weaves, black women, most of y'all, they can't swim anyway. And so that's not even an issue. So let's just take that. Let's take the weaves, lace fronts, black women. We'll take that off. I would love for somebody who's watching the show right now who may take a little bit of offense of me suggesting that black women can't swim. I would love to see what is the percent. Somebody Google and see what is the percentage of black women who can swim. I'll be willing to bet anybody. I'll bet every dime I have in my pocket right now. Let me check and see before. I'd be willing to bet my whole $20, I don't have a lot, my boys took my check. I'd be willing to bet that less than 25% of all African-American women can swim. I'd be willing to bet you less than 25% of black people can swim. Black people can't even swim. That's the other thing. So that's my thing about the weaves and the lace fronts. They ain't coming to the pool, no way, except to maybe splash their feet in the water a little bit. And even that, they just got their toes done and they can't have that chlorine eating away their nail polish. As far as guys are concerned, guys with baggy pants, guys with dreadlocks, clearly this guy does not want black people at his pool. I don't even know what the racial makeup is in Wendell, but he don't want black people in his pool, and he don't want nobody with dreadlocks in the water, and clearly he's got some racist stuff going on, which a lot of the people in the country still do. The country is very divided right now, and there's a whole lot of discussions that's going on. There is still a significant racial divide. I've been looking and reading articles about reparations, and we talked about that a little bit last week, and the reason for reparations. I was watching Danny Glover on C-SPAN talking to the Senate committee hearing, et cetera, and I think, is Taraji involved in it? I don't know if she's involved. Oh, she's talking about mental health. Well, they need to get Taraji on over there after looking at old Danny. You got to get somebody cute in there to fight for reparations for us. Get baby boy's girl Jody. Get Taraji in there, and let her argue for reparations. But I was reading an article that was talking about how when they look at the median income of white Americans, the median income, not income but wealth holdings, the median was $111,000. Okay, black $7,000. Okay. Do you understand? $7,000. So all you black people that are watching, the median wealth holdings. That means if right now you're watching this and you have more than $7,000 in the bank, more than $7,000 in property, more than $7,000 in stuff that's own stocks. You own your own business. You own a house that's worth more than that. You own more than the average black person in America, $7 grand. With white people, it's $111,000. Okay, so reparations is an important thing. We need to talk about it. You all know my suggestions. If you were watching the show last week, I'm suggesting that we put it into a great big fund. We have a trustee board over it. Somebody needs to manage it. I said Obama at the time, but I have since rethought that. But there needs to be somebody that's over it, that runs the fund, that builds it, that people have to apply for it. Because clearly there's a divide between black and white in America, and there is a divide between white and black in America. And the fact that there are white people that are still making racial statements, the fact that there are people who are still making statements that are reflective of ignorance should not surprise us. And that's my time. It should not surprise us. It is kind of a part of the world that we live in. And it sounds to me like this guy's pool, is it his private pool? Does he have it's a pool he owns that is like, that everybody else can come to. So it's like he owns a public pool, and he has decided, I don't want nobody with dreadlocks in my pool. I don't want nobody with baggy pants in my pool. And quite honestly, I agree with the baggy pants thing. You can have long swim trunks, but anybody who wants to jump in the pool in jeans and jump in the pool in T-shirts, and we all know who those people are. Those people should. I agree with that, but most definitely, it sounds like a racial thing, and it's just a continuing part of the wake-up call to us. In terms of who we are as a people and the work that we have to do. 64.2% of black adults say they had no or low swimming ability. So do you understand low or no? That means y'all can't swim. 64%. And you know what that is? That ain't no 64%. That is more like 75%, like I said, because that's people like y'all who can doggy paddle a little bit. I said swim. I didn't say can make it from width to width. I'm not saying somebody who can make it from the side of the pool to the side. I mean somebody who can swim the length. When I was a kid growing up, back in Boston, used to go to the YMCA for swimming. You get to swim. If you wanted to swim in the deep end, they made you take the test. To take the test, you had to swim the length of the pool. You couldn't be all on the side, grabbing up on it. You had to swim the length of the pool, in the middle, all the way to the end. Then they would let you swim the deep end. You can dive in and all of the other stuff. So can you do that? Okay, can you do that? We can do a little poll right now. Just from everybody that's watching this show, you can just send us a little Instagram. Just if you can swim the length of the pool, if you can dive into a pool, swim the whole way and swim all the way down there, you can jump into a deep end and tread and dive under. And see, I got people in the room shaking their head. So if you can dive in and tread water and all of that stuff, then can you swim? Jarrell, see, Jarrell can't swim. Son, can you swim? No, you can't swim. Yeah, you're light skinned. You don't really count. When can you swim? When can't swim. See, browner you are, the more you can't swim. My daughter Kayla's in there. I know she can swim. I can swim. That's all I'm saying. That's right. Exactly. Sorry. This is so racist. There's things that are racist, and then there are things that are racial. Racism implies a prejudice, a prejudging, an idea based on, racial is just an acknowledgement of the facts that there are some things that black people do and white people do, and there's some things that white people do that black people don't do. Okay, I'm done. Let's move on.
So next topic, Bill Cosby's Father's Day post insisting he's America's dad has everyone on social media tripping. This is what he said. He said, hey, it's America's dad. I know it's late, but to all the dads, it's an honor to be called a father. So let's make today a renewed oath to fulfilling our purpose, strengthening our families and communities.
First of all, the hey, that's like from his Fat Albert thing, okay? That's number one. Number two, Bill Cosby is what? Rolling on 80? Okay? He's definitely rolling on 80. So, if I was rolling on 80 and I was in jail, I don't know if I would necessarily want to be judged with my clarity of thought, with what I'm trying to say. That's my other thought on it. Number three, he still is a father. And how many black fathers are in jail? A lot. So just because he went to jail does not mean he's not a father. In terms of him being America's dad, hey, that ship has sailed. But I will just say this, that I don't know if I think Bill Cosby should be in jail. I mean, I guess, I think that going to jail should be more about rehabilitation than it should be about punishment. And I get it that there's a punishment aspect of it, but I think we just get vindictive about punishment versus rehabilitation, and that's a part of the problem with the justice system, and especially when it comes to black men. And I mean, do we really think Bill Cosby needs to be rehabilitated on this issue? Is he still drugging women, even if he was trying to do something now? What's he gonna do? Drug him to get a hug? The man's 80 years old. What can he do? Okay? So I feel like, should he be in jail as a result of this? I mean, certainly what he did was bad. It was heinous. Drugging women against their will. That's the part of it for me that's really, really horrible. The drugging of it. Him drugging women, especially if they didn't know they were being drugged. Now, that's the big if. But if they did not know they were going to be drugged, then I think that's a real challenging thing. And I almost hesitate to speak any further, because I don't want people picketing church on Sunday. But I will say that I think that if you meet Bill Cosby in a bar or at one of his shows or at a club or whatever, and you decide to go with him back to his hotel, why were you going up there? Was that a date? He could have took you to coffee for a date. You could have stayed right in the lounge where you were if you were just going to talk. The only reason to go someplace private is because you're going to do something private. I mean, if you're a woman, you just have to be smart. I'm not blaming the victim. I'm just saying, him drugging them, yeah, awful, terrible, horrible, especially if it was without their knowledge. That's way too far. But anyway, Bill's in jail. I'm sorry for it. I feel like, y'all have to forgive me. I'm a black man. I feel like, how many good black role models do we even have? And, I grew up with Bill Cosby just being this real serious voice and a very serious leader, and someone that cared about the way that African Americans were viewed, and went a long way towards us being not just considered as talented, as gifted, but also educated and thoughtful, and for his whole legacy to be torn down over this, as horrible as it is. And it's a horrible thing, but it's very similar to when we were talking about Kavanaugh, and I don't want to go down there, because I know that there are women who have been violated. My wife's been violated, so I totally understand it. But I'm just, it's upsetting to me. I'm saddened by the fact that Bill Cosby ended up not really being what we thought he was. But do I think he should be in jail? I don't know. I'm not a judge or jury. Is he America's dad? No, he's not. But I'm glad somebody wants to say something to men and whoever we need people. Maybe not Bill Cosby, but we need somebody who could speak up and say to dads, hey, be a dad. It's a great thing. And it's something to take pride in. And I take great pride in being a father, you know, not only to my own children who I love, children of my actual body, but even all of my godchildren, all of my spiritual children, father to the fatherless kind of thing. I think it's a role and a responsibility that every male has to take on, particularly African American men. I think it's something that's important for us to focus on. So the fact that Bill Cosby even brought a certain amount of attention to it, to me, is, if he's bringing attention to the role of the fathers or fatherhood and creating conversations, the very fact that we're talking about it, and the talking about him being America's dad, or talking about whether or not he still has the right to call himself that, that's pretty, to me, if it just makes us have a conversation about it, that's a good thing. My guys are making some really crazy looking faces, so it's let me just say, you know, just be careful what you say, be careful how you comment. You know, you come at me too hard, I'm just gonna block you.
So New York is ending religious exemptions for vaccines after the measles outbreak. I know a lot of parents, it's a battle whether or not you give your kids vaccines or not. Myself, I'm an advocate for vaccines. I don't want nobody to get my baby sick. So
Sure.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, I feel like, you know, the vaccinations are important. I think it's important for us to maintain public health and public safety. There's so many of us, and we're all living in proximity together. We're a communal species as human beings. And I think we do have to be careful about it. I know that there are people who do want to, you know, as a result of their religious beliefs, you know, want to say, okay, well, no, this is something I'm not interested in doing, or, you know, I don't want my kid to get a vaccination over a religious belief. I think that there are people who are curious about vaccinations just from the perspective of asking what kind of long-term effects are they causing. There's a lot of questions around vaccinations right now. What is going on with seeing so many autistic children? And is this something new? Have we always had a lot of autistic children and we just weren't necessarily calling them autistic? Or is this this most recent outbreak, or I don't want to call it an outbreak because it just sounds like something horrible like a disease, but for us to have as many children that are dealing with it as we do now, what is the cause of that? And I think that people are pointing to vaccinations as a cause for that. And I think it's kind of the way the world goes. It's kind of, we're weighing the safety of the public versus the rights of the individual. And that debate is always an interesting thing. It's always an interesting conversation to have when we start to talk about, okay, well, what is best for the public versus what is best for the rights of an individual person. And it's a place where in our democracy, we battle on a regular basis. Even when it comes down to gun ownership, for example, the rights of the individual to bear arms versus the rights of individuals to stay alive and to stop mass shootings and the rash of those things. The rights of an American to own an assault rifle versus our right to life, liberty and the pursuit of happiness. This balance is an excellent question, and I think that it's something that will continue to be discussed, and something that we'll continue to have conversations and debates over. I think that there are times when we don't necessarily look at the long-term deleterious effects of anything on a culture. For example, right now, if we're going to make people take vaccinations, and I think that they should, because we're worried about public health, then there's a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to have to start doing because we're worried about public health. And I think that the direction in which our culture has gone, particularly when it comes to our sexual proclivities, we need to be thinking about our public health. But that's the ultimate question of any system that's trying to be democratic, and that is what is best for the what is best for the big, and is it possible to sacrifice the few for the larger group? I actually finished Game of Thrones last night. I hadn't finished it. I had watched it, but I hadn't watched season 8 because so many people were upset about season 8. So many people had complained about season 8. And so many people were upset about it. And I just don't need anything else bad. I just don't need anything else going on just to make me annoyed. Just about, I finally finished. I finished the whole season 8. Watched all the way to episode 6 last night. Spoiler alert. It really did come down to, I obviously, like everyone else, I did not like how the show ended. I was really, really disappointed in the way that they decided to take the show. Very, very bothered that, beyond just the writing, but very bothered that Jon would kill Daenerys. That was very problematic to me. I felt like the whole seasons, all they were trying to do was to keep Daenerys. The minute Daenerys, let's think about it this way. The minute she got to Westeros, she had all of her Unsullys, her Dothraki, and 3 dragons. If you see that battle in which she took King's Landing, it took her, an hour? That battle's over quick. That was with half of her Dothraki, half of her Unsullied, and 1 dragon. She lost 2 off fighting this war for Jon. And all Cersei did was get stronger. She could have went there, and with 3 dragons and all the armies, she could have took King's Landing in half an hour. And then maybe she wouldn't have been so angry. Maybe she wouldn't have lost her best friend. Maybe she wouldn't have lost 2 of her dragons. Maybe she wouldn't wanted to kill everybody. But no, they talk her into it. And then they're going to kill her at the end. I was really greatly bothered by that. I was disappointed in her for killing everybody. But what does that have to do with people were going to die. Okay? People were going to die. Now, we want to get nitpicky about who died. All the women and children in King's Landing died. But there were already women and children that had died all over the place. It had already happened. And, for them to kill her then like she was going to end up being some horrible ruler in the future, I was extremely disappointed. I was disappointed in the fact that Jon ends up in the Night's Watch where he begun. I was disappointed in the fact that Tyrion ends up still the hand, and he was one of my favorite characters till the end. He just got stupid and lame, totally outmaneuvered. What did he ever do that wasn't a mistake? It just reaffirmed, and maybe this is just where I am, but it just reaffirmed the idea that you can start to have as anyone who's a leader, and that there's just no loyalty. There's no loyalty. If you watch the show, there was a time when she looked at Varys, the spy dude. She looked at him and she basically was like, "Why should I keep you alive? All you did was try to kill me for the good of the realm. Now you're telling me I should be on the throne for the good of the realm? What's to say you're not going to change your mind and decide that somebody else should be on the throne for the good of the realm?" She looked at the people around her and she was like, why shouldn't I kill this person who wants to decide who should be king or shouldn't be king based on their notion of it? And sure enough, they betrayed her. Sure enough, he betrayed her. I mean, he did exactly what she said he was going to do, which was betray her. And I feel like the greatest lesson of Game of Thrones, and it's not a life lesson, it's not a lesson for any of us to take, it's a very non-scriptural lesson, it's a very ungodly lesson. And if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, or even if you're a good person and you're watching this, it's a lesson from Game of Thrones that you do not want to apply to your life. Because the subtle message behind Game of Thrones is no act of mercy goes unpunished. And if Daenerys had not been merciful from the beginning, if the minute she landed in Westeros, if she had went to take that capital, she wouldn't have lost all that she lost. But no, she decided to be merciful. If Jaime Lannister hadn't tried to save Brienne of Tarth, he wouldn't have lost his hand. Anytime anybody tries to be merciful or just in that show, they end up getting killed. Even Jon, who kills Daenerys for the good of the realm, ends up sent to the Night Watch. It was just a very disappointing show. And it was a good show, but it was disappointing. That's all I have to say about that.
So next topic, ESPN bans LeVar Ball for inappropriate comments. So the reporter asked LeVar Ball if she could switch gears in the conversation. He responded, "You can switch gears with me anytime." So now he is banned.
I think it's very interesting, because I think LeVar Ball is a very polarizing character. I think you either love him or hate him. I think that there's a lot of people that don't like him. Although we're living in a world right now, I was reading a pretty interesting article about kids in sports and how they were saying how there are fewer kids getting involved in Little League sports, football, basketball, baseball, because of the pressure that they feel from their parents, the pressure that they feel from the system. Back in the day, it was like, oh, I want to play sports just to have fun. Whereas now it's like parents are seeing this as a path to wealth and a path to and hiring coaches and trainers and yelling from the sidelines and coaching from the sidelines and yelling at the refs and getting into fights with one another. I think as much as people may not like LeVar Ball, I think that in a sense he's a little bit of a picture of who we've become. He's somebody who believes immensely in his children and their basketball abilities. He's very loud about it, but he thinks that his 3 sons are the best basketball players in the world. He thinks this new kid, his youngest kid, LaMelo, is going to be a #1 overall pick. And I think that, to me, that's very typical of Americans right now. I think everybody thinks their baby can play, even people whose babies can't play, clearly. And people yell at refs, and people yell at coaches, and people yell at each other, and people just, it's ball is turned into like a sports period. It's turned into a very kind of battle, cutthroat kind of, gone are the days of sportsmanship and those kinds of things. My son's last basketball game, their high school career, they played for a Christian school in this private league, played against another Christian school in the private league. The Christian school they were playing against was clearly better than them. My 2 sons were pretty much the best players on their team, and one of their other best players was hurt, and 2 of their other starters were hurt. So it was in the tournament. They had made it to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8 or whatever, playing up against another team that was a Christian school in the state of North Carolina, and that Christian school was trying to score 100 points on them and trying to beat them by 50. I mean, you could tell. I mean, there was a period of time when the game was won. They were up by 25, and the game was over. But instead of just being like, yep, we won, we're advancing, no, they decided, no, we're going to run the score up. We're going to try to score. And it wasn't just the coaches. It wasn't just the team. It was the fans. It was everybody in the room. They had no compassion whatsoever for my sons, the end of their basketball career, playing against a team that's clearly better. They just said, it's just kind of where we are. We're at this point right now with sports in which it's just become a very life and death thing, especially for people of color. But I think I was reading an article today that was talking about a fight that just recently happened in a baseball, in a little league game where I think the umpire or the umpires was young, 13. Maybe they're starting to let younger people call the game. I didn't read the whole article, but I saw the headline. But just kind of where we are in sports and all of that. For LeVar Ball to be banned after all the stuff he's done, the damage he's potentially done to his children's careers, although, hey, we're talking about Lonzo Ball. We talk about Lonzo Ball. We're still talking about him. We're talking about his son, LaMelo. We know his name. Okay? My son is a very good basketball player, and people don't know they don't know his name. Both of my sons can really play. They're 18, 19. Nobody knows their name. So Lavar has definitely put his name. Believe me, people going to watch his son play. People know. So you can make an argument as to whether or not he's hurt or helped his son's career. I certainly don't think he helped Lonzo at the Lakers. But you know what? If Lonzo had went there and been Jason Kidd, he wasn't. They were talking about him like it was going to be Jason Kidd, but he wasn't Jason Kidd. Does he still have the potential to be Jason Kidd? Sure, because he's young. And he's been hurt, so I don't even know if it's a fair advantage. And then LeBron came up there, so I don't even know if that's a fair assessment. But here's my thing. For him to do all of that stuff, and then for them to ban him because he made an inappropriate statement to a woman is interesting to me. It's interesting to me. And I think that we have a tendency in America to not find the balance. There's a ditch on either side of the road. This is something I talk about at my church. This is something I talk about on this show, that we have to find the balance. The church has a tendency to go in the total exact opposite direction of whatever they think the world is. So if the world says everything's okay, the church says nothing's okay. Okay? The world wants to be totally carnal. The church wants to be totally spiritual. So instead of Kenneth Copeland telling the truth about why he has a private plane, he's got to say something overly spiritual and stupid like there's demons on the plane, because we don't know how to find the middle ground. Because the middle ground is not that there's demons on the plane. That's all the way to the right, Christians. That's in that ditch. All the way over here. So super spiritual and spooky that he's going to say there's demons on the plane. Okay? So because we just want spiritual stuff. Because we see the world as so worldly and so carnal, instead of saying, okay, well, what's the balance? And the balance is, and I'm not even going to make Kenneth Copeland's statement for him. That's on him. My point is that we have a tendency to go all the way to one extreme or the next. The world says, oh, it's all about sex and flesh. And the church says it shouldn't be about sex at all. Marry somebody you don't even think is cute. Marry somebody full of the Holy Ghost. That's what the church said. They lied and said, go find somebody that can pray. The family that prays together stays together. It's not true, because divorce is higher than ever in the church. It's higher than ever in America, and it's higher than ever in the church. So the idea that a family that prays together stays together is not true. It's an overly spiritual concept that has now been proven to not be accurate. Okay? So we have a tendency to get in one ditch or the other. The church does it. The world does it. The world system that we live in. So you can make an argument. There was a time when women had no rights at all. Okay? That is wrong. That's the right. The far right is women have no rights. Women are property. Women are a commodity to be traded for land. Women, we ain't even got to hear nothing they got to say. And there were women who worked in the workplace, weren't paid, weren't treated fairly, being sexually harassed on a regular basis, totally under the man's thumb. Matt Lauer, the ugly dude in Hollywood, Weinstein, Harvey, just running rampant. That's the far right. Okay? That's the far right. That's horrible. What's the far left? Are we in the middle now, or are we in the far left? I feel like we're skewing towards the far left, where we don't think any statement towards a woman, a statement like "you look cute," is now seen as, and if telling a woman she's cute is going to be taboo, then it's going to be a sad world that we live in if the only person, what are y'all going to dress up for? Are you seriously saying that you did not dress up for somebody to notice that you dressed up? Look, I'm back working out again, so you'd be so proud. I'm back working out, okay? I'm in the gym, P90X, and okay? I got to get myself together, okay? I'm in the gym yesterday, son. I'm in there, okay? Doing shoulders and arms, biceps, triceps, Shoulders, biceps, tries. I'm working out, okay? This girl walks in here to go do squats. Help us, Jesus, make 100. 99 and a half won't do. And it was a white woman, too. Not even talking about no sister. Because at this point now, the white girls are like, oh, I got to, back in the day, you could be like a white girl and be cute and just straight. But now it's like, no, the white women are like, I got a Brazilian butt lift. I got to do my thing. She is over here, okay, doing her squats. She's doing this one thing where I don't want to talk about her too much like I was watching her. But she is over here, okay, working out. Every dude in there, we're all trying to be in there and just trying to act like we're all doing our workout. All of us are. We're all working out hard, okay? We're doing what we got to do, trying not to look over there. Now, every now and then, I'm a man. Why must I be like that? There's no dog in here, but every now and then, the human in me, and I'm just like, let me focus on me, and let me just and I was like, I got to get up out of here, okay? I worked out real quick. Why did they make them yoga pants like that? They ain't got to make them yoga pants like that. Are you telling me that girl's not wearing them yoga pants in there because she wants to be? That doesn't mean that she should be harassed. That doesn't mean she should be drugged by Bill Cosby. It doesn't mean that she should be Lavar. But I'm not saying that some bishop should be able to slide his hand around her waist and get a little side boob. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that women should be subject to any kind of unwanted physical touching. But I think that we're going to go all the way over to the left if we get to a point where you can't make any kind of statement at all. I'm not defending LeVar Ball at all because I think he's just a over-the-top, loud, indefensible kind of a cat. But I just think that we have to be conscious of this. I think we have to be aware of whether or not a woman could be lying or not. There are some people who are just all the way over here now. They just think any single accusation a woman makes can be believed. And I'm sorry, but women can lie just like men can lie. And there are evil women. Woo! Don't turn it off. But there are evil women. We know there's evil men, but there's evil women who will vindictively know that they can use that. Just an accusation of domestic violence at this point can ruin your NFL career. Now, I don't think anybody that's violent against women should be playing in the NFL. So I think if you are domestically violent, I think if you hit women, I think if you do any of that stuff, I think that you should not be in. But at this point right now, you are guilty until proven innocent if you are accused of that. And I just think that where the Me Too world is skewing to a place now where in our determination to be sensitive and in our political correctness, we have to be careful that we don't get all the way over here. It's kind of like back in a couple months ago or whatever when we were talking about Martina Navratilova and how Martina Navratilova is trying to say that maybe women who used to be men shouldn't necessarily get to compete against women who were born women in a sporting event. Like, that may not be fair. So here you were a guy until you were 24, and so you had that amount of testosterone, you had more muscles, and you developed into a man at 24. You're a 24, 25-year-old man, and now you're going to get an operation that's going to make you a woman, and now you're going to now step in and start to compete against women. And she was questioning the integrity of women's sports, if that's something that is going to be allowable. And she was absolutely attacked. and seen as intolerant. No one even wanted to discuss whether or not her argument had merit. I was reading an article today about Cracker Barrel and how, that's my spot. Woo, crack that barrel. I'm supposed to be getting myself in shape, but I figure if I'm P90X and I could have a pancake, you know what I'm saying? Come on, Terrell. And so I was reading about Cracker Barrel and how some crazy dude sheriff, white guy sheriff who's also a pastor somewhere in Tennessee, Cracker Barrel's based in Tennessee, and how he was trying to have some kind of meet and greet event at Cracker Barrel. And he made some kind of dumb statement like all gay people should be executed by the government or something like that. Yeah. And so Cracker Barrel, or somebody sent it, Cracker Barrel people got wind of it, told him he cannot have his event there. Okay? Here's the thing. His argument was that I'm not defending him, but his argument is that the same discrimination, that as much as he was kept out of Cracker Barrel for being discriminatory, keeping him out is discriminatory. That's his point. His point is that, and it's a point that people are making, that if you really are fighting for intolerance, then you will have to be tolerant. If you really are fighting against intolerance, then you will have to be a bit tolerant of people who are intolerant. I mean, you can't fight for free speech and say everything's fair, but don't want to have a discussion with someone who may not agree with you. If you are battling for equality, and if you want to live in a world and in a time in which the government's power is limited into your individual choices, there's no law against you being gay, and you cannot be discriminated against for being LBGTQ alpha AB. Can't be, okay? You cannot be discriminated against for being any of that stuff. You cannot institute a system of government that now discriminates against people who do not agree with you. You can't now start suing people to make them make you cakes. And now what you're doing is you are introducing legislation to force government, to force people, and that's exactly what you're trying to be free from. I think the real challenge, and I'll just say this and I'll get away from it before I really get in trouble, is that very often this struggle, the struggle of that community, is likened to African Americans and their struggle for equality. And I think that the thing about African Americans is we just want equality, whereas I think that people of that community want more than equality. I think they want to be celebrated. I don't know if I want to be celebrated for being black. I just don't want any discrimination. I don't know if I necessarily want everybody to agree with who I am as a black person or what it means to be black to me. I think there's a difference between discriminatory acts and agreement. It's one thing to discriminate against a person for being Japanese. It's something else altogether to agree with everything within their culture. You understand? So it's like, there may be some things that I may not agree about that Japanese people do, but I shouldn't discriminate against them just for them being Japanese. I think we've got to find a middle ground in America in which and even that community has to hear a little bit. And again, they're not in the balance. They're in a ditch. They're in the ditch of, no, celebrate us. Anyway, I'm like all over the place right now, so. Woo! Doing this show by myself is. All right, come on. You got something else to throw at me? We got the last 5 minutes.
So the last topic we're going to talk about today is Meagan Good. So she has been in the public eye lately for her comments that she made about going to church.
What were those comments? I missed this.
So a lot of the comments were that she doesn't, because they were asking her why does she really go to church a lot with her husband, not just because, you know, she's an actress and she travels. A lot of times when she goes, Christians make her feel uncomfortable by the way she may dress or some of the scenes that she may have portrayed in. So
Sure.
What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I had an opportunity to meet the both of them one time, very briefly. I was at an event with Bishop Jakes, and I happened to sit next to them. And I don't want to pretend to know the Franklin guy personally. I don't know him personally, but what I saw of him and met of him, he seemed like a real genuine guy to me. And their relationship seemed genuine and real. And I think that if Meagan Good is going to churches where she's feeling overly judged for how she dresses, then she needs to go to some different churches. Because she could come to World Overcomers and no one would judge her based on how she dresses. And she can go to World Overcomers and no one would judge her based on whatever movie roles she played. And I think that there are churches that are not just, I think there are churches that are, again, here we are, ditch on either side of the road. I think there are churches that do have a tendency to lean super far to the right when it comes to being conservative. I was talking to one of the pastors under me in the fellowship, and he was telling me how somebody came up to him and told him that someone said to him, the King James Version is the only version of the Bible. Now, he's speaking out of NIV. This person said, King James Version is the only version. He said that to me, and I said to him, I said, son, you can't even be upset with them because all they're doing is spouting what they've been told. That's not an original thought. That person who said that, if you're watching and you think that, you only think that because that's what somebody told you. You're not educated enough or even smart enough to determine whether or not the King James Version is an accurate interpretation or translation. You don't know Greek, you don't know Hebrew, and you don't know German. So you're not in a position to decide whether or not the King James, no, someone said that to you and you're spouting it. Now, there's an aspect of that is Christian tradition, and it's kind of how we got to where we are. People said stuff to us, they told us stuff, and this is what we think is right. Many people who think what's right is right, they think what's right is that way because that's what somebody told them. So just like if someone watches me, if you're watching me right now and you're like, a pastor shouldn't talk like that, that's because that's what you've been told. If you actually stop and think free for a minute and think about this venue, anyone who comes in here and says, that pastor's preaching in jeans, that's not of God. Who said? That's what someone told you. And so, Meagan, sweetheart, we're all getting judged on our clothes. I have a very large church, a fast-growing church, and I get judged on my clothes. That's just people spouting what they've always been taught. I think it's very interesting that someone in the entertainment business can be judged on what they do as a Christian and someone in the banking business is not. I mean, if everybody's going to have a spiritual job, then everybody got to go quit their job. Some of y'all are watching me right now, and you're at work, and what you are about ain't spiritual at all. Okay? Your company's not about Jesus. Y'all are not talking about Holy Ghost. You got supervisors in there. You got people in there cussing. You got folk in there that ain't right. You're working for a company that's all about making money, and the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. But we're going to be mad at Meagan Good. Sweetheart, those are just ignorant Christians and that is the battle. It is Jesus battling against the Pharisees and the Sadducees, people who are so stuck on a traditional perspective and in love with the letter and totally lacking the spirit of the law. I'm telling you right now, anyone that got around Meagan Good and her man and sat with them for 15 minutes would feel like, wow, what a nice girl, what a nice person, what a nice woman, what a genuinely sweet person who care. And the very fact, because she could be like, I don't care what people say, but that's not her, which is, it's very interesting how we judge salvation and what we say is saved. Because I have met some of the most tongue-talking, Holy Ghost-filled, fire-baptized, loving Jesus, rude, evil women in my life. And just because somebody may not be, just because they may not be all in tongues praying 24 hours a day, we're going to judge them as less than spiritual. But if you really are spiritual, stop speaking in a tongue and speak English better. So I feel for her, and she needs to find some better churches to go to. Churches that realize that it's not about, you can't judge the book by its cover, and it's not just about what a person, it doesn't necessarily, believe me, Meagan Good is not walking into church in a miniskirt. She's got more sense than that. She's married. She has a husband, and if her husband's good with her, then mind your business. I think all of these things are a part of what's going to help the church to grow and help the church to change and help the church to grow, because this is the church that don't nobody want to go to. Right now, the young people don't want to go to a church like that. That church is dying. That super judgy, oh, you need to have on a dress that's down to your ankles, that nobody's going to that church. And so I think that the church will have to adapt, the church will have to grow, the church will have to change, because where did dresses come from? See, this is the thing. I got into a conversation with a guy trying to be in my fellowship, in which he said to me, yeah, Pastor Andy, I want to be a part of your fellowship. And I said, great, man. I mean, we're wide open. Join OCF. We started talking about his church. And he told me that his church is a Church of Christ church. Now, if you're a Church of Christ and you're listening to this, you're probably not. If you know somebody Church of Christ, but if you're watching this, you're about to be a little annoyed. The Church of Christ denomination he's a part of doesn't believe in instruments. They do not believe in musical instruments. So their worship is just a cappella, it's just no music. And I said to him, why? Why would you start a church, no instruments? Why would you start it with a denomination that doesn't believe in instruments? And why don't you go ahead and make their theological argument to me? Now, I don't know how well he made the argument, but here's the argument. Their argument is, we want to speak where the Bible speaks and be silent where the Bible is silent. And there's no place in the New Testament where we see instruments used in the new church. That's their argument. Because clearly, in the Old Testament, praise him with the psaltery and harp, praise him with the string instruments, praise him. You can't read Psalms and not deal with instruments. So they can't look at the Old Testament. They're just looking at New Testament church, and they figure, if it's not in the New Testament church, we're not going to have it here. I was like, okay, well, then you can't have cars. Then you can't have microphones. You can't have air conditioning. Y'all niggas, y'all need to be in there hot, sweating, fans. They didn't have deodorant in the New Testament church. I mean, where's the argument going to end? Okay, they didn't have shoes. See, this is, once we start to talk about what's holy and what's not holy. I was raised in a strict holiness denomination. Ain't nobody holy in comparison to the people that I was raised by. Okay? Because women couldn't wear red, women couldn't wear pants, women couldn't wear jewelry, women couldn't wear makeup, and they needed it. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Anything you put on after you wake up is makeup. Everybody got makeup on. Okay? If you lotion today, okay, if you're not going to wear makeup, then don't wear lotion. Just let that crack. I don't really get a whole lot of that. But all of you that get that ash right here, let that shine through. That's makeup. You couldn't wear any of that stuff. The strictest group of it were called the evening light saints. And they didn't believe in ties. So if a man wore a tie, that was worldly. To them, it was just shirts buttoned all the way up to the top. That was holy dress. A tie was worldly. See, now if a preacher doesn't have on a tie now, if a preacher don't have on a tie, they're not dressing in a holy way. Here's the problem. When did ties get here? When did suits get here? When did dresses get here? If ties are so holy and dresses are so holy down to your ankles, then why would God make Adam and Eve and just put them in the garden, just naked? Did Jesus wear a tie? Did John the Baptist wear a tie? So I think that we just have this tendency, and I totally understand it because I was raised in a traditional denomination in which the practice of religious tradition keeps the line, and I understand that, but we have to be careful that we don't get to a point where we lose one of the most profound statements that Jesus made, and that is that Sabbath was made for man, not man for Sabbath. So, Meagan, sweetheart, if you're listening to this, which maybe somebody will tell you about it. And I've even talked about maybe having them come because their whole making it till they were married, and I met them in their book, and all of it's really cool. Cool story, cool little couple. But you just got to find a better place to go to church. And if church people are upset about Meagan Good not wanting to come to church, then we need to stop being so judgmental and stop making people feel uncomfortable. I think there should be a standard of propriety, but I think we have to be careful that we're not stuck in the 1920s. Because if we are, then the only people that are going to come to the church are people that were born in the 1920s. And those people are with the Lord. This has been another episode of The Third Degree. The statements expressed in this show are mine and are not reflective of any of the advertisers who I'm believing for, like Adidas. So, see you again on another episode of The Third Degree.